Hello and welcome to this virtual open day of Eurojust. Thank you very much for joining us. We have organized this open day in the context of the Just Peace Month organized by the City of The Hague. Here in the studio, I have with me Solveig Wollstad, National Member for Sweden. Thank you very much for joining us, Solveig. And my name is Esther Karolini. I work at Eurojust Corporate Communications Unit. We have actually a question for you. So if you could please let us know in the poll that is available that where you're joining us from. You have three options. We would like to know how far this open day can reach. Traditionally, of course, in the open day, we have people visiting our building, and that is only really possible if you're in The Hague. But this year it's special, so please let us know where you're joining us from, and we'll let you know the results later. Let me explain what we have planned for you for the next hour. We will start with a video tour of the building, so you have the opportunity to see the building, however virtually. Then we have a short explanation for you about how Eurojust works and what we do. Solveig will tell us about her experience as a prosecutor at Eurojust and explain about a specific case that she was working in. And we have the option for you to ask questions, so we would very much like you to submit your questions already via the chat function, and we can answer this as the time comes. Please also note that we are live on Twitter, and you can join us in the conversation there by using the hashtag #TeamEurojust or Eurojust. Now, let's start with the tour of the building.
Hi, my name is Cecilia Torfin, and today I want to welcome you to explore this virtual tour of Eurojust, the European Union's Agency for Criminal Justice Cooperation. Created in 2002, Eurojust is located in The Hague, the Netherlands, in the international city of peace and justice. In this beautiful building, which was inaugurated in 2017, around 130 prosecutors and investigative judges from over 30 countries work side by side to tackle all forms of serious cross-border crime. They give hands-on assistance to their colleagues in the national judicial authorities who are working on international criminal investigations and prosecutions, tackling all forms of crime, serious cross-border crime, including terrorism, drug smuggling, human trafficking, cybercrime, or economic crime such as money laundering. So why Eurojust? The European Union is based on freedom, and this is not just an abstract catchphrase, it's a principle that determines our daily lives. The free movement of goods, services, capital and persons gives us the opportunities we need to thrive economically, socially and personally. But to safeguard these principles, two other pillars of the EU are equally important: security and justice. We cannot allow criminals to take advantage of those freedoms. And as crime knows no borders, Europe needs to fight crime across borders as well. In this virtual tour, we offer you the possibility to take a closer look at how we are working and how this agency is set up. The Eurojust building is surrounded by a dune landscape and a water feature, which form a necessary security barrier. Together with the color scheme and materials used inside the building, including a lot of copper, the building intimately reflects the character of the host city, The Hague, a city in the dunes by the sea. So here we are in the lobby of the Eurojust building, and in fact, the structure of the building is also reflecting how Eurojust is set up. Here above me, we have the low rise of the building, and this is where the national members and their teams have their offices. They are senior prosecutors and investigative judges who are seconded from the national judicial authorities and thus not employed by the EU, but representing the member states they come from. And usually the secondments to Eurojust last several years, meaning that they get to know each other very well, They build very close collegial relationships as a basis for creating trust and mutual understanding. And this is actually key to a good result, since judicial cooperation between sovereign states requires a thorough understanding of legal frameworks and of legal cultures. Over here, you can take the elevator up to the high-rise part of the building, and here about 240 support staff are working in what we call the administration of Eurojust. These are people who are directly employed by the agency and serving the national desks in their work. Judicial cooperation officers are available to help and assist the national representatives in the casework, and they also build the center of expertise in cross-border judicial cooperation that Eurojust forms. The experts also produce best practice reports and organize thematic events, for example for prosecutors specialized in a particular crime type, which regularly take place here. Other staff members ensure the security of the building, logistical services, IT systems, arrange translations and interpretation services, and ensure, of course, the proper management of budgets and of staff. Complex cross-border crime investigations can last several months or years, and they require careful planning and coordination and discussion, in which Eurojust and the national desks play a coordinating role. Let me now take you down to one of the coordination meeting rooms and tell you more about how this work is done. Here we are in one of the secure meeting rooms which are used to hold case-specific coordination meetings. The prosecutor in charge of the case can organize one or several such meetings so that all actors needed in the case can meet face-to-face in a secure environment. The number of countries and participants entirely depends on the case and may include judiciary, law enforcement, of course, and Europol. The European Union Agency for Law Enforcement Cooperation regularly participates, as well as representations of customs or food security authorities, depending on the crimes committed. And we also regularly have OLAF here, the EU Anti-Fraud Office. They meet here face-to-face or via a secure video conferencing system to share case information and case files, identify possible parallel investigations, and work out which country is best placed to prosecute a suspect. They also prepare the use of judicial cooperation instruments such as a European arrest warrant or European investigation order, and they also plan the collection of evidence, which is of course very important once the case goes to trial. There is a possibility to have simultaneous interpretation into all EU languages so that each participant can speak his or her own language, so that language doesn't become a barrier to understanding each other. Regularly, the countries are also assisted to form a joint investigation team. This is an agreement that enables direct cooperation between judiciary and law enforcement authorities for a specific purpose and a specific period of time. The advantage is that the partners in a JIT can cooperate more effectively, including directly collecting and exchanging evidence, and they can also be present during investigative measures on each other's territories. Complex coordinated actions can also result in the organization of a joint action day in which the countries come together to monitor the joint action day here from our coordination center. Here we are inside the coordination center from which such joint action days can be monitored and supported in real time with the assistance of Eurojust's casework unit. It has secure data connections and makes it possible to centralize continuous contacts between all the judicial authorities and law enforcement involved, immediately analyze the information as it is reported from the field, and take the required action. If you would like to step into the shoes of a prosecutor who is working here during one of those joint action days, please play our simulation game. It's a simulation of a coordination center, and we actually take you on a journey, step by step, what happens during one of those days. But this time, you're in charge. You have to take the decisions to bring the case to a successful close. Good luck. Now let's talk a bit about how Eurojust is governed. Each member state appoints a national member to Eurojust, and together they form Eurojust College. They run the operational work together, but they also take decisions on budget and on other managerial issues, such as the multi-annual programming of the agency. They meet every week in this room, which has an oval-shaped table, and this is very much reflecting the way they take their decisions, which is as a group. They appoint a president, who is seated over here, and 2 vice presidents, and they each serve a term of 4 years. In December 2019, the new Eurojust regulation entered into force, and this led to the creation of an executive board, which is supporting the college in its decision-making procedures and where the European Commission is also taking part. The 240 staff who are working in the administration of Eurojust are reporting to an administrative director. One of the artworks created especially for Eurojust stands outside of the building. It's a large bronze statue by Spanish sculptor Fernando Sánchez Castillo. It's called Reflection, and it portrays a woman seated on a rock in a position similar to that of Rodin's Thinker. As a way to celebrate the cultural diversity at Eurojust, the EU member state that holds the rotating EU presidency is also invited to offer a display of pieces of art in the Eurojust building.
Welcome back. We hope you liked this tour. I can tell you from the poll that the group that you participated in this tour with consists of 30% of people from the Netherlands, about 2/3 coming from other EU member states, and we even have a few people from outside the EU borders, so that's quite a tour. I don't think we have done that in the past. But now you're one of the first to participate like that. So thank you very much for that. Again, a reminder that you can ask questions in the chat function. And at this point, I would like to hand over to Solveig Wollstad, a national member of Eurojust for Sweden, and she will tell you about one of the cases she handled at Eurojust. Solveig, please.
Thank you very much. And I wish you all most welcome. I'm working for the Swedish desk. We are one of the desks. Each country has a desk at Eurojust. And at the Swedish desk, we are working 5 people. 4 of us are seconded by Sweden. We are all prosecutors. 3 of us are from the Swedish Prosecution Authority, and 1 is from Economic Crime Authority. And we also have help of a desk assistant who also is a lawyer. We are, you could say, a link between our home authorities and home authorities in different countries in Europe and other countries with whom we have an agreement. There are different legal systems and different laws in every European country. And there are easy misunderstandings. Prosecutors in Sweden, they may contact prosecutors in other countries directly if they wish. But very often there are misunderstandings, could also be cultural, different way of looking at things, and we don't know each other legal systems. When I started at Eurojust, I try to learn every country's legal system, but that was impossible because they are changing all the time. So we really need to help. And what we do is to help our home authorities, mostly prosecutors, but also police officers and courts, for example, to get in contact with their counterparts in other countries, to get things done there. For example, if a Swedish prosecutor has an investigation about a drug trafficking case, they might need information. They might need have a house search done in another country or several other countries at the same time. And then we connect them with prosecutors or investigative judges or whatever it might be in other countries. To facilitate and help to do the right thing and the proper actions. And there are not too seldom actually ongoing parallel investigations concerning an organized criminal group in different countries. And then it's very important both to exchange information, judicial information, but also not to do double work or not to interfere in each other's investigations. And here is where we could help. We start talking with the prosecutor. For example, if a prosecutor from Sweden gives us a call and needs some help, then we contact our colleagues, national members or people working at other countries' desk at Eurojust, discuss the case, what could we do, what do you have in your country, and then normally if we need to coordinate several investigations, we invite them all to a coordination meeting. And normally it's held in the premises of Eurojust, but currently there are, as you know, difficulties due to COVID-19, so we also have these coordination meetings on video link. And it works quite well actually, even if the best always is to meet people and talk face to face. In this coordination meeting we could discuss where to prosecute, what information to exchange, and the next steps. We could also decide to form a joint investigation team where prosecutors, investigative judges and law enforcement from all the involved countries work together in a more informal way. And that's a very good tool we have. During this last period, since April this year, one of the cases where we spend a lot of time at the Swedish desk is the so-called EncroChat case. It has different names in different countries, but it's very interesting because for the first time we could base it on disclosing of a communication system called EncroChat. It's a phone solution used by mainly criminals, and they was promised they would never get disclosed. Nobody could see what they communicate, and they have been very safe in this. It all started in France, where judicial authorities and the police together worked on to disclose the EncroChat system and to decrypt it. And they could do that because the servers are in France, and according to French law, they would be able to do that because it's all about very serious criminality. France and the Netherlands started to work in Eurojust together in 2019, and this spring they, together with Europol and also police and judicial authorities in the different in the Netherlands and France, created a JIT. And they got a lot of support by Europol analyzing everything, because now they have discovered that there were millions of messages that could be encrypted, used by criminals in many countries. And they discovered there were a lot of information about crimes such as murder, explosion, drug trafficking, trafficking of firearms, extortion, kidnapping, money laundering, you name it. And it was very often very clear information, as the criminals who used this system thought they were safe. During the spring, there were 5 coordination meetings in Eurojust, and Sweden, together with United Kingdom, Norway and Spain, were invited by France and the Netherlands to take part. much of the criminal activities, they were ongoing. So by exchanging the data at a very early stage, the Swedish police managed to interrupt plans on killing people, on kidnapping people, and on trafficking different kinds of drugs. This joint investigation team, consisting of France and the Netherlands, they made it possible to intercept, share and analyze millions of messages that were exchanged. And they got a lot of help, as I mentioned, by Europol to analyze it. There were many, many people working on this during the spring and summer. In June, it was revealed that the law enforcement and the judicial authorities had managed to encrypt EncroChat, and so there was an official press conference held at Eurojust in the beginning of July. But still, we had all the information. And what's going on now is that prosecutors in Sweden, for example, they send European investigation orders via Eurojust to France, asking for relevant information in their cases. And that could be text messages, it could be phone calls, it could be photos, could be descriptions, orders to commit crime, and a lot of things. And we were surprised that it was all expressed very, very clear. We have many, many investigations going on in Sweden with the help of the information from EncroChat. And there has been several hundreds users revealed through this very good cooperation with France and Netherlands and the other countries. We recently had our first verdict from the District Court of Södertälje. It's a case about grey possession of a weapon. It was a Glock. And there were two perpetrators judged to imprisonment for a little more than 2 years. It's about two people. They were in a forest, and when they went to a forest and stayed there for a short time and they came back to a car, they were observed by a policeman who was not on duty but out walking his dog. He thought they looked suspicious, so he called his colleague, and they searched the forest with the dog, and later with a dog specialized in firearms. In a pit, they found a Glock pistol, vacuum packed. It was a semi-automatic Glock with the laser sight. And they started an investigation and found a lot of technical evidence, but the hinge factor, on top of all other evidence, was when they received information from decrypted EncroChat phone. They found SIM cards at one of the suspects, and by checking these SIM cards, they could discover the right information via the decrypted EncroChat information. And they were sentenced. And the reason in this encrypted EncroChat information, there was a message sent by one of the suspects to his, let's call him chief, saying that we were very lucky today. The police caught us just when we managed to dig the Glock down. And that was very, very good evidence for the prosecutor.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Solveig. That sounds like an interesting case. I assume there will be a lot of follow-up still. So this was just
Yes.
one judgment, and there will be many more if the data can be processed.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the questions we are getting from our visitors. That's quite nice. I would like to ask the first one to Solveig. Someone was quite eagle-eyed and checked on our website and noticed that you're a member of the executive board.
Yeah.
Can you tell a bit more about how that work goes?
Yes, that's an administrative board.
Mhm.
As mentioned here in the general presentation, it consists of the president, two vice presidents, and we are two colleagues elected by the college, and then there is a representative for the commission. And what we are doing is preparing different kinds of issue for the college meetings, such as budget, staff-related issues, data protection rules, and Eurojust is like any other authority or agency. Everything has to be there to make it work, and that's what we're preparing. And it's a very interesting job actually, because it gives me an opportunity to both influence the whole organization, but also a very good knowledge about how it works and what we could do.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Another question. Can third countries participate in a joint investigation team?
Yes, they can. We do have agreements with third countries, which means non-EU members, and they can participate. Some of them have liaison prosecutors based at Eurojust, and through this agreement we can exchange personal data. And we can invite them, and we can also invite others if there are special circumstances. And there is also the convention from 59 from the European Council, which allow us to create JITs, joint investigation teams with third countries.
Mm-hmm. Great, thanks. There is a follow-up question on the EncroChat case.
Yeah.
Can you estimate how many cases were opened at Eurojust based on this?
In fact, it's only one case, because it was French who opened it, and then there are many sub-cases, maybe a couple of hundred. I'm not sure, it's a guess, but there are many.
Absolutely, that's a complex one that needs a lot of follow-up and
we are concentrating on effective the requests from our home country's prosecutors. So how many there are, it's not of our first interest actually. We want it to work, that's most important.
Good. Maybe this is a good time that we can go to explaining to you how
may
much
I
work
add
we have
something?
at
Because
Eurojust?
I've
Yes.
heard that somebody asked for the legal base for this EncroChat.
Yes.
And we all work under our national legislation. So when French judicial authorities and French police started this, they have to do it based on French law. And we do have a similar legislation in Sweden, that we are allowed, when it's a crime that we suspect that is serious enough, we may intercept different technical tools. That's what happened in France. And when they intercepted, they discovered this. And if you, when you intercept in a specific case, find other information in other serious cases, you may share that. And that's under a special national laws, but also European under the European Investigation Order, which is decided by the European Union, and allow every country to ask for information in another country, and that is what is happening here. And as I mentioned, we facilitate these orders that come from Sweden to France.
I assume you have a lot of other cases where European investigation orders are used.
Yes,
so that's
it's very common. It's very common. Most countries accept them now. A few doesn't, but then we could ask for mutual legal assistance based on another decision.
Good, thank you very much. Another question from visitor. What's the average time a case takes at Eurojust?
Oh, it depends. It can go very quick. It could be done in a couple of days when it's urgent. If we get a request from Sweden for telephone interception in Spain, for example, it can be very quick done. Or it could be a controlled delivery, which means that you are following a transport of firearms or drugs, for example, and that could be over very quick too, but it could also take years. Sometimes it starts by that we get information from Europol, and we start to think, could this be a judicial case? Because the police is doing everything with the police contacts and intelligence, but at some stage it reaches a judicial level when you have suspects and need to use coercive measures. And then it could take several years before we are ready. It depends on how big it is, what it is, and how many who are involved.
Yes. Another question, and for this we actually have a slide, so if we can show that, then I'm sure it will be helpful.
Yeah.
How do you cooperate? How does Eurojust cooperate with third countries? What is the way we work with countries that are not members of the European Union?
We to exchange personal data, which we do when we cooperate in a specific case and have suspects, then we need an agreement. And we do have agreement with several countries, and you can see them here on the slide.
Yeah.
And some of these countries have chosen to post a liaison prosecutor at Eurojust, which we are very happy for. Because then we can talk to them directly and work as we do with each other. And they are involved in our work. And besides that, we also have contact points in many countries where we do exchange information about legislation, how to send a request to get assistance from their country, and things like that. But we are not allowed to exchange personal data if we don't have an agreement.
What is the situation, for example, with Norway? At what level are they represented at Eurojust?
Norway was our first agreement, and I'm happy to be one of those who negotiated this agreement. And they have had, they have now a couple of liaison prosecutors based at Eurojust, and it works very smoothly. It's my neighbor country, you know, and we have a very good cooperation within the Nordic countries. But apart from that, we now also could use all the EU measures, and it's very smooth and very efficient.
That's good to hear. I'm sure also crime doesn't stop at the EU borders, so that's...
No, and we are always a step behind, as it could feel, because we need, of course, legislation for everything we are doing, but it should be like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you think it would be interesting to share our statistics, how many cases Eurojust handles in a year? When Eurojust started, I think I remember that the first year in 2002, there were about 200 cases that came to Eurojust, and that grew quite a lot. In 2019, it was almost 8,000 times that Eurojust was approached by national prosecutors, by the home authorities in the member states, and as we have heard, even from third countries. So as you can see, there is almost 17% growth from one year to the next in the last 5 years each year. A lot of these cases, as Solveig mentioned, are solved quite rapidly. So it's a question of hours or days that the prosecutors in the member states get their response. But in some cases, again, as you've heard, it may take years or months to resolve the case. And also, it might be interesting for our visitors to see what results we deliver, what our outcomes are. Solveig, I'm sure you've had this question a lot of times. How do you measure how successful Eurojust is? What is our output?
There are different ways of measuring it. I would like to add, when it comes to how long time it takes to deal with the case, that we do have a lot of economic crimes we are dealing with, and they are always a bit complicated and almost always involving third countries where it's difficult to get information. But anyhow, we have been successful also in many of these. We used to only count cases, but it doesn't say anything about what we are doing. So last year there were 800 agreements where to prosecute, where we discussed who is doing what. There were approximately 2,600 suspects arrested. And drug was seized to a worth of 2.8 billions. And we have dealt a lot with big cocaine cases, for example, coming from South America. And we always try to seize or freeze criminal assets, because that's a language which every criminal understands. And that's a punishment that is even worse for many than going into prison for a couple of years. And last year we managed to seize or freeze 2 billion in criminal assets and thousands of weapons, laptops, mobile phones and cars. It's not only money we are trying to seize, could also be estates, cars, jewelry, gold, whatever.
Absolutely.
Whatever.
Wherever that money went.
Yes, yes.
Good. We have another question. How do we cooperate with Europol, and what is actually the difference between Europol and Eurojust?
Yes, we cooperate a lot with Europol, and I will say that we have a very good cooperation. I think we have a general cooperation with Europol because they are analyzing intelligence, and they could contact us if they need judicial assistance or would like to share something. And we also have contact points from Eurojust in different analytical work projects. But besides that, the Swedish desk and other desks, they are working very close with the national desks at Europol. And that's a more day-to-day cooperation. Almost every day we talk to them via phone. We have regular meetings, sharing what cases are going on, coordinating the police activities with the judicial activities. And this is of great help. And we also invite Europol to many of our meetings, coordination meetings, and ask them and help us with analysis when it comes to criminal facts and also with intelligence.
Good. Now we have a personal question for you. What do you like most about being a prosecutor or working and working at Eurojust, which is might be a separate answer?
It's a fantastic job to be a prosecutor. I never regret I became a prosecutor, I must say. And working at Eurojust is the best job I ever had. It's so nice because with quite small means you can do such a lot to combat crime. And by cooperate with other countries and to learn to know nice colleagues, you know, everybody who is in Eurojust, they really want to see a result. They are not only very friendly, they also do everything they can to facilitate and to help my authorities. And of course, I and my colleagues would like to do the same to the other countries. So it's very basic. Getting together and share experience lead to a lot.
Absolutely. In a previous session, we had a question, how does one become a prosecutor in your country? Can you tell us about that? How do you reach to the level when you're at Eurojust? Of course, it's a long path, but
first you have to study law at university for 4 years, and then you have to do a couple of years in a court as a clerk, where you learn everything that is going on in the court. Then you can apply to be accepted by the prosecution authority. And then you have a kind of trainee period for 9 months approximately, and then you are an assistant prosecutor. And after a couple of years you will become an ordinary prosecutor. So it's quite a long education, but it's very important because a Swedish prosecutor is very independent. You are yourself independent for every decision you make, and your boss cannot come and correct you. There is a way of correcting a decision made by a prosecutor, but it's very formal and it's made on a higher level. So as a prosecutor, when you the police call you and you decide whether they should stay in custody or not, and whether to prosecute or not, it's your own decision, your own responsibility.
It's quite a tough job.
Yeah,
and
but
then
interesting.
how do you? Is it possible then to specialize towards international cooperation, or how does Eurojust? When does Eurojust appear in this career?
Yes, you could be specialized. We do have specialized prosecution offices in Sweden. We have for international organized crime. We do have for environmental crime, corruption, security issues, and so on. And if you have worked as a prosecutor for several years and you worked with organized crime, you could apply for a position, for example, in the National Unit Against Organized Crime. And you could also come to Eurojust for an extended study visit, 2 weeks, about 2 weeks, to learn to know what it's all about. You don't need to work with international organized crime in Sweden to become an intern for 2 weeks, but it's a good way, I think, to learn to know Eurojust. And I know that many other countries have the same system. And we also welcome, not for the time being, unfortunately, due to COVID-19, but normally we welcome study visits because we want to spread the knowledge about Eurojust and how much we could help.
Thanks. We have back to Eurojust's cooperation with other institutions. We have a question about how does Eurojust work with the EU institutions, the Commission, the Parliament, the Council. What is the relationship there? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, we are under EU legislation as an organization. And since last year, as was mentioned here, we have a Eurojust regulation. And nowadays we have a representative from the Commission, both in the college and in the executive board. And the Commission is helping us a lot, not only with the budget, but also with agreements, operational agreements with third countries. And the Council consists of our Ministers for Justice or Ministers for Interior, depending on what system we have. But we are, many of the national members are in direct contact with their ministries at home to discuss the need for additional legislation, for example, and to give them feedback how it's working in practice. And we also stay in touch with our perm reps in Brussels. And in that way, we could give influence from an operational point of view. And I think that's very good, because the politicians need to know how it works in practice, what tools we need, and so on.
Definitely sounds like it's worth it for them to know about all we do.
Yeah, they are very interested,
Yes.
actually. So, yes.
It's a very practical way in which Europe helps citizens, so it's indeed one outcome of all the European Union's work. You mentioned this already, but we still have a follow-up question about how Eurojust reacted to COVID, and if were there any cases about COVID-related matters at Eurojust, and what is the situation now? How do we work now in these times? We have seen all the beautiful coordination meeting rooms and all of that. That's probably not possible to use now.
Coordination meetings mainly are virtual nowadays, but there could be exceptions depending on special circumstances. But we have organized from the Swedish desk many more coordination meetings this year than last year. Maybe it's easier for people when they can stay at home and not have to travel to The Hague. Even if it's a more complicated case, it's always better to meet person to person. But it has been affected in some ways. For example, when it comes to European arrest warrant, when a Swedish prosecutor issues an European arrest warrant, the person get arrested in another country, and they should surrender the person to Sweden after some judicial proceedings. But that have been delayed due to COVID-19, simply because there have been hardly no flights at all, and other practical problems. But it has been solved in many different ways, and it works. You can always solve problems if you really want to.
Yes. Let me see what else we have coming in, because we do have some curious viewers. How do we... What do you think is the important part for the next few years for Eurojust? What kind of developments do you expect will happen in this field? What do we need to take into consideration? What is the goal for evolving?
Yes, I think it's very important to improve cooperation, not only with other countries, but also with other international organizations, to avoid double work and to learn from others how they are working. We do cooperate with a lot of organizations, actually, and I would like to enhance our cooperation with, for example, South America, as we get a lot of drugs coming from South America, also with many African countries. We have to deal more, I think, with the trafficking in human beings, which is a very serious crime. And there are always a lot that needs to be done. And we have a program where we have prioritized what to do in the next coming years.
What about, you mentioned virtual coordination meetings. What about digitalization of justice in general? Is everything already accessible? Is there anything to do there still?
It's a hard work. It's coming. It's coming. Well, we have what we call the production order, when a judicial authority in one country should be able to ask for information directly in another country and directly from the supplier. And there are ongoing negotiations to make this work, and also with the US to involve them, because they do have a lot of service providers. there's always a matter of both data protection, but also to get the information in a safe way. And it's not always easy, but we have to protect our systems and we have to improve our systems so we can exchange even the most secret information in a safe way.
Yes. Another question from your career. Can you share, if you can share, what was the most challenging and most difficult case that you have handled?
Oh, I have had so many interesting cases. I have had a couple of cases about hate crime. I have had. Do you mean at Eurojust or as a prosecutor in general?
Oh, as a prosecutor in general.
Yes, one of the most interesting was about a serial shooter in the south of Sweden, who he for a couple of years was out shooting people at ransom, and that was a very serious, very interesting case, which I and a colleague directed together, and but thanks to a lot of resources and a lot of work from the police, a lot of international cooperation involving Eurojust and United States and Germany and Denmark and other countries, we managed to prosecute the perpetrator, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment. That was one of the most interesting cases. But I have had many interesting cases about different kinds of crime, for sure.
Yes. Well, if you want to explain to your, let's say that you have a young prosecutor from Sweden, and you want to explain how Eurojust helps, which case do you use? What's your favorite example there?
It depends on what they are interested in. Actually, at the Swedish desk, we deal with a lot of fraud, drug trafficking, trafficking in human beings, and economic crime. And I would probably use a drug trafficking case. Because it's quite easy to illustrate. They are always cross-border, and it's quite easy to illustrate how we could work with the help of a drug trafficking case.
Good. Now we only have a few minutes left, so I invite our viewers to share any questions that you may still have left. In the meanwhile, perhaps we can take one from the beginning. One of our, we have some people who are looking at our website quite detailed. One of our visitors noticed that Denmark seems to have a special position at Eurojust, or it's somewhat different. Can you explain about that, how that works?
Yes, Denmark is still a member of the European Union, but they have left Eurojust due to political reasons. But we still need to and are cooperating with them. So we have concluded an agreement with Denmark, and the Denmark representative could be present in college meetings and also get involved in the cases. The more practical details are still under discussion. But for us, it's of most importance to be able to work operational with Denmark, even if they left Eurojust.
Yes, so it was a satisfactory solution then on the operational level.
Yes.
Yes. I think this will be the last question. How is a decision made, let's say in a coordination meeting, about which country will be leading the prosecution? Where is it going? How do you decide this?
It's very simple and not. We have to agree. We have to agree. There is no boss. We have to agree, and we all work according to our different legislations. But normally it's not a problem, really. Sometimes we we still have different prosecutions in different countries. Sometimes Swedish prosecutor, for example, could issue an European arrest warrant asking for other suspects to be surrendered to Sweden. And on the opposite, we could give away our case. I've done that a couple of times. Once I transferred a Swedish case about drug trafficking to Greece because there the suspect in Sweden was suspected for a murder case. And that's a serious case. So you could do both and you can work together. There are different options.
Good. Thank you very much. I think that concludes our session. So thank you so much, Solveig, for all these interesting answers and the insight. I invite our viewers to check out our website, although I see you have been doing that, and also to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We will start, the HR session will start soon. So thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a very nice afternoon. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.